Nonviolence is the greatest force at the disposal of mankind. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction devised by the ingenuity of man. Renowned revolutionist Mahatma Gandhi. Today the world stands to observe the birth of a man known for employing nonviolent resistance against Britain's colonial rule. It is no surprise then that the day is being recognized as International Day of Nonviolence, a day reserved to disseminate the message of nonviolence through education and public awareness. Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson and welcome to Jamaica Magazine. We'll share some more of the life and work of the great Mahatma Gandhi and some everyday Jamaicans answering to the call to promote peace. All that and more on today's show. Do stay with us.
I'm sure my neighbors hear the screams and cries.
I'm sure by now they've seen the bruises through my oversized glasses.
Can they tell I'm depressed when we speak?
Are they counting my frequent days off from work?
Domestic violence is any pattern of behavior used by an individual to maintain control or power over another. Domestic violence is not just physical, it can also be verbal. If you're in a relationship where you are being abused or know of anyone, get out and speak up. Report domestic violence by calling 119 or the nearest police station. Get out before someone puts you out.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, October 2. Murders in the St. Andrews South Police Division, now under a state of public emergency, have been halved since it took effect on July 6. Over the 84-day period, the division recorded 22 murders, 31 less than the 53 recorded prior to the implementation of the special security measure. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says in the 84 days since the state of emergency has been declared, shootings and rapes have also declined.
The SOEs work as to whether or not they are the perfect tool. We on this side have said they are not, but they continue to bring us results. If we continue with the measures, we will have 2 consecutive periods of reduction in murders. And that's very important. It is important to get momentum. Very important that criminals understand that there is a consensus amongst lawmakers to have a firm handle on crime.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness putting forward his case for the extension of the St. Andrews South state of emergency in Parliament Tuesday. Members of Parliament supported his arguments and voted to extend the special security measure for another 90 days. Still in Parliament Tuesday, a joint select committee of the House has put forward several recommendations related to the Sexual Offences Act, Offences Against the Persons Act, the Domestic Violence Act, and the Child Care and Protection Act. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck, who tabled the recommendations, says the committee has suggested that the penalties for offences in all 4 pieces of legislation should be increased.
In particular, Mr. Speaker, where criminal offences are committed against vulnerable persons in the community, especially pregnant women, the elderly, the disabled, the sick, because there are people who commit offense and abuse these persons, that the penalties should be very heavy, probably a minimum of 20 years.
The committee is also recommending that a new offence of stalking be created, amending the Domestic Violence Act to enhance protection orders, and removing the conditions from the Sexual Offences Act to determine if a husband can rape his wife. Other considerations preferred by the committee include a law to prevent the criminalization of children where they willingly engaged in sexual activities with each other. In other news, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation has launched an initiative to retrofit schools across the island with rainwater harvesting systems. Dubbed the Water IQ or Wiki initiative, the move is to educate and encourage Jamaicans to conserve and use water with efficiency. At the launch on Tuesday, Portfolio Minister Pernell Charles Jr. said students and teachers will be engaged to become the standard bearers for the success of the initiative.
Each participating school will be assigned 12 water monitors in the form of students and 1 coordinator who will be a teacher or a member of staff. Each water monitor will be trained in a session conducted by the ministry with the involvement of our agencies, the Water Resources Authority, National Water Commission, and the Rural Water Supply Limited, and other relevant stakeholders on proper water management practices and techniques.
Minister Charles Jr. was speaking at the commissioning of a rainwater harvesting system at the Rock Hall All-Age School in St. Andrew, benefiting approximately 368 students and teachers. Minister Charles says the country must build its capacity to withstand the effect of climate change, which includes drought conditions.
As a nation, we must do these 2 things. Recognize the value of our water as being essential for life and invaluable to all living creatures. And 2, we must recognize that we all have a social responsibility to conserve and protect our water.
Jamaica has recorded more than 3 million tourists since the start of the year. This number includes approximately 1.9 million stopover visitors and more than 1 million cruise ship passengers. As such, tourism earnings for the period are up by 10.2%. It is anticipated that the tourism earnings will surpass the projected year-end target of $3.7 billion. The latest tourism figures were released yesterday by Portfolio Minister Edmund Bartlett at a media briefing at the ministry's New Kingston office.
As of now, we have an increment of 150,000 more stopover arrivals for the year so far, which is a record in its own way, because this is the end of September. And that 150,000 more visitors for the year represent some 8.6% increase over last year.
He said the outturns put Jamaica firmly on track to meet and exceed the government's end-of-year targets for the sector. The Ministry of Tourism will be placing special focus on increasing arrivals from Japan. Portfolio Minister Edmund Bartlett says new marketing arrangements will be implemented, targeted at the Asian market. Mr. Bartlett is to lead a team to Tourism Expo Japan 2019, slated for later this month. While there, he is scheduled to meet with key officials and stakeholders in an effort to recover that market. He noted that arrivals out of Japan was stronger 30 years ago.
But we lost that market, and we lost it because of a number of factors. But now the Japanese economy has rebounded. They're doing extremely well. Their outbound market now is over 20 million, and the appetite for Jamaica and the Caribbean is returning.
And finally, the importance and benefits of breastfeeding will be the focus of a symposium being held tomorrow at the Montego Bay Convention Center in St. James. The symposium and exhibition is being hosted by the Western Regional Health Authority, which covers Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. At a recent JIS think tank, regional health nutritionist Nadine Simmons-Lewis says the event is aimed at further heightening public awareness about breastfeeding. Mrs. Simmons-Lewis says the symposium will be targeting workplaces to make them breastfeeding friendly. In addition to a presentation from the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, the event will also be garnering support from men through football and cricket associations, ministers fraternal, taxi associations, and service clubs.
We will also have presentation on the nutritional components of breast milk up to 2 years and beyond, for a child 2 years old and beyond. We'll be looking at men in breastfeeding, the role of men in breastfeeding, and also the women, empowering women in the workplaces, empowering breastfeeding women in the workplace.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
When you're on the road, take your time. When you're on the road, bear this in mind. When you're on the road, you could save a life when you're on the road.
Gender-based violence is a common occurrence in many societies across the world, but even louder is the call by our government to end this practice. Today, as we recognize International Day of Nonviolence, here's a call to end all forms of violence against our women and girls. Watch this.
It is no secret. Jamaica experiences reports of domestic violence.
Sometimes him beat me in front of the picnic them.
There is no excuse for abuse, and the government has implemented a plan with the hope of beating domestic violence out of the country. The data on gender-based violence says much. In Jamaica, 1 in every 4 women is abused. Globally, 1 in every 3 women is a victim. Coupled with that, domestic violence has no regard for age or status. Men are also victims, so too girls as young as age 15, who are being physically, sexually, and emotionally abused in intimate partner relationships. With year-on occurrences of all forms of gender-based violence, the government has been courting several plans to eliminate the act. Finally, a perfect relationship has been formed and has given birth to a 10-year plan for ending this cowardly act. The National Strategic Action Plan to Eliminate Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, NSAP-GBV for short.
The period is 2017 to 2027, 2017 to 2027. And that plan is predicated on the due diligence framework, which allows us to have 5 strategic priority areas. The first one is prevention. How do we engage key stakeholders so that they become a part of the solution and not a part of the problem?
A major component of the prevention strategic area is the implementation of a No Excuse for Abuse social media-driven campaign.
We are very fortunate to have been blessed with a 3-year MOU through our partner, UN Women, that will allow us to do a 6-month campaign. We think that this campaign should make a huge difference, and we plan to have it rolled out in a very robust manner across communities and engaging different players at different times. The second strategic priority area is protection. That looks at how do we ensure that once the person becomes a victim, there is the adequate provision for shelter, there is provision for psychosocial support and rehabilitation. How do we look at the perpetrator as well?
The third priority strategic area covers the investigation, prosecution, and enforcement of court orders.
So once a person has been a victim, becomes a victim, what sort of mechanisms are in place to ensure that the victim gets redress and gets compensation if that is what is required? And if there is a protection order that is required, how do we ensure that the protection order is taken out and that it is enforced? And if there is an issue with compliance, which happens in some cases, where the perpetrator decides to violate the protection order, how do we ensure that it is enforced? And how do we ensure that the victim has protection? The fourth strategic priority area looks at compensation, reparation, and redress. How do we ensure that victims and survivors have adequate compensation for redress for wrongs that have been done? And how do we compensate? What forms of redress are appropriate? What is affordable given our limited fiscal space? The fifth and final strategic priority area is data collection and the systems by which we have a management of data. Gone are the days where persons talk from their heads about gender-based violence, because we now have a survey findings, a set of survey findings that's put together in a report. It's called the Women's Health Survey, and that survey for us is very important.
Released in 2017, the Women's Health Survey was conducted by the Inter-American Development Bank, UN Women, and the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. It provides facts, not anecdotal information about the violence some persons face. Eliminating gender-based violence will not be a band-aid fix. With the help of local and international partners, government has crafted a research-driven program to involve major stakeholders. The goal is simple yet revolutionary: to bring an end once and for all to this scourge that has crippled families and impacted our country psychologically and financially.
One group helping to keep the peace in our society is all Justices of the Peace, a group dating back to as early as the 12th century. Here's a little more on their roles and responsibilities.
When you offer your service across Jamaica, it is absolutely important for you to be fair-minded. Ensure that fair play at all times is displayed, a person dispensing justice, ensuring that peace is maintained across Jamaica. To assist in solving the many problems that we are encountering in Jamaica.
We see them all over the country. We know their names. We employ their services for signing important documents, among other things. But do we know the extent of their functions, or how one even becomes a Justice of the Peace? Come, watch as we open the gates to the historical peacekeepers of our nation.
I'm appointed through the Ministry of Justice, and as a JP, you have to be very, very confidential. So people can come to you and they can confide in you with whatever, and you can be that person that they can talk to. You have to be a person of integrity, a person who is an unquestionable background.
You're joining a vocation that has been in existence and started from the 12th century. From 1195, the king, known as King the Lion-Hearted, said to the knights, we need distinguished persons to operate in boroughs, communities, right across England. So find some persons who can keep the peace. Some from 1195, over 800 years ago. Persons who were appointed were known as keepers of the peace. It was only in the 14th century that the term Justice of the Peace became the JP that you are now.
Ministry of Justice call us peacekeeper, and people do call us peacekeeper because we do keep the peace. Some of our duties that I perform, I witness documents for people, I do recommendations for some of the youths who want a job. I also do recommendations for persons who want to be surety to bail another person. So there are multiple things that I do as a Justice of the Peace.
The role of a JP is a voluntary one. So these officers are not to accept cash or any form of reward for the work done in their capacity as JPs.
It's something that you will do out of your heart. You have to do it as a person. You have to do it as a Jamaican. You have to love your country. And I believe that we have to stop asking the question what our country can do for us and to want to help to change our country, to change the justice system.
From there, the steps to become a Justice of the Peace are fairly simple. You must be a Jamaican citizen residing in the country during the time of appointment. You must be able to read and speak English fluently. You must be able to communicate and interact at all levels with all types of people. You must be a person of undeniable integrity who commands the respect of the local community. And you must be a person who has offered voluntary service to the community and the country by extension, while indicating the potential for continued service. But always remember, as a JP, you're offering a very valuable service to your country.
It's a fulfilling job, but it's also a tiring one. So I want to say to fellow Justice of the Peace out there, please, do it for the love. As what they say, do it for the love, not for the likes. You understand me? Make sure you're doing your job correctly. You signed up for a position to help people, help people.
You know, one of the interesting things about Gandhi was how he spent decades experimenting with food, charting the results and altering his eating choices. He even wrote a book titled The Moral Basis of Vegetarianism. Well, speaking of experimenting with food and eating choices, here's a little help on how to monitor the food you consume.
Your body needs energy, and we call this our daily requirements of calories. And for Jamaican men, it's about 2,100. For Jamaican women, it's about 1,900 calories per day. The calorie is just a unit of energy to say how much energy you need to get around your daily activities and so on. If you're more active and you're not in a desk job, then you're going to burn more calories. If you go to work, when you get up in the morning, you sit in a car and you go to work, you sit at a desk all day, and then lunchtime come, you order and they deliver the food to you, and then you eat that and you go back and sit again, and then you sit in a bus or a car and you go home. So you're sitting all day, you're not doing much, versus somebody who's on the road and they're walking around or they're standing all day like the teachers and nurses and so on. Then you'll realize the difference in how much energy you will need. And so if you are more active, you should be eating a little bit more. But the problem is that everybody is eating as if they're working in sugarcane fields, chopping cane all day. And this is the problem. So we consume more calories than we are burning off. And every day if we keep on consuming calories, you need 3,500 calories to make 1 pound of fat. One soda, if you look on the serving size for these things, these juices and so on, you'll think that, oh, it's just 110 calories. But how many servings come in that container? About 3 or 2.5. So you can easily drink 300 calories like that. And if you do that 5 times for the day, that's 1,500 calories. You almost don't need to eat anything else for the rest of the day. So the excess calories come in the body, and then the body begins to store them as fat. And then you put on more weight and more weight. You have to watch the pastries and the breads and all of these things that people, even when they're vegetarian, they still have a lot of these little snacks and so on. These things are full of calories. You know that one of the cream crackers is about 450 calories. Water crackers is about 500. Yeah, nobody don't want to hear. I never want to believe it either. But this is what you get, the packs that you get, and a lot of people eat them with butter, right? So can you imagine how many calories you're putting in your body with one little snack? And you don't talk about the tea yet, with the milk, the condensed milk and the sugar that you have to have that with. All of these things, they add up without you even knowing.
The ingredients label will go from the most to the least in a product. So if the product is making a claim, look at where that claim is. If it is 1, 2, or 3, because if it falls less than that, you're really not getting value for your money, right, in terms of content. The nutrition facts. One of the first things you're going to look at is the servings per container, and this says 2.5, which means it's 2.5 servings in the container. You are not supposed to drink it, you must share it, right? And then you're going to look at your calories. It says 90 calories, but it's 90 calories per serving, and it's 2.5 servings. So it's 2.5 times 90, which comes out to about 225. And then you come down and you look at your sugar, and it's 22 grams of sugar, but it's per serving. So the entire container is 2.5 times 22, which works out to about 55, 56 if my maths is right. And there's 4 grams equal 1 teaspoon, so you end up with about roughly 14 teaspoons of sugar. And that is, you use this template for all the products that have nutritional facts on them. This is 14 teaspoons of sugar, and the American Heart Association recommends that for an adult male, you're supposed to consume 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day. For an adult female, it is 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day. And for a child, it's less than 6 teaspoons per day. And a child here, we're talking about from 2 to 18 years old. Don't look at a container and judge it by the size alone. It's very important to read the label so you know exactly. And look at it, 220 calories. For parents, we're asking them, to be very mindful of how much sugar they're giving their kids, right? Because it impacts upon their health in the long term.
We try to provide information to parents and guardians, teachers, anyone about the alternatives to these sugary drinks, because really you don't need them in your diet. You can get enough sugar that you need from the foods that you eat, the carbohydrates, which are converted to sugars in your body, which give you energy. So some of the alternatives are, of course, water. It's the best one, but there's also fresh fruit juices. So blending your own juices without adding sugar, and you'll have the natural sugars and fiber from the fruits. There's coconut water. It should be, you should actually drink this in moderation because it does have quite a high sugar content, but it is a good alternative. For the children, freezing the juices into popsicles or ice cubes so that it's more interesting for them to drink, as well as doing infused water. So infused water is it's a process where you cut up your favorite fruit or vegetable or even mint leaves or aloe. You place it in water overnight so that the vitamins, the minerals, all the goodness from the fruits and vegetables are infused into the water, and you can have that. It's not sugar sweetened, and it gives you the vitamins and minerals that you need throughout the day. And then for children, there's unsweetened milk. So not flavored milks like the chocolate milks, but unsweetened milk doesn't have a high sugar content, and it also will give the children the calcium that they need for their growing bodies as well.
October 2 finds us recognizing and celebrating a famous leader and champion for global justice and peace. Here are a few interesting facts about freedom fighter Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi organized several nonviolent civil disobedience campaigns, which of course included using fasting as a means of resistance. Government nutritionists were even called in to explain how Gandhi could go 21 days without food. He fought against racial discrimination in South Africa. Gandhi arrived in South Africa in 1893 as a legal representative of Indian traders. There he faced discrimination, which was common against people of color, and decided to take up the fight against racial oppression. Gandhi led the famous Salt March. The British Salt Act of 1882 prohibited Indians from collecting or selling salt and also imposed a heavy tax on it. For 24 days, Gandhi marched 388 kilometers to produce salt from seawater. The Salt March was extensively covered by media, and the world began to recognize the legitimacy of India's claim for independence. Man of the Year. In 1930, he was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year and was also the runner-up for Time's Person of the Century. As a man of peace, Gandhi was a 5-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Today is simply a call to pattern some of the actions of this distinguished figure and help make our country the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. And our time is up, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy a recap of today's episode. Catch it all again on our website or YouTube channel. You may also keep up with us, the JIS team, on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. And before we go, think on these words from the man of the day. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.